Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something really interesting around preparation and growth.
Yeah, we're looking at a devotional called Rhapsody of Realities by Pastor Chris, specifically the entry for May 10th.
Right, and for anyone maybe not familiar, devotionals usually take scripture, like this one does, and kind of pull out reflections for, daily life, spiritual growth.
Exactly. And our goal today is to sort of unpack how this specific devotional uses a pretty well-known Bible story.
To give us some insight into our own journeys, right?
Yeah.
How we prepare, how we grow.
That's it. The core idea, the main takeaway we're exploring is how sometimes the longer, maybe confusing paths in our lives might actually be God preparing us.
Building resilience,
Yeah.
faith, stuff like that for what's ahead.
Mm-hmm. It's a powerful idea. And it all stems from this analogy about the Israelites leaving Egypt.
Okay, yeah. Most people probably know the basics of that story. But this devotional looks at the route they took.
Exactly. So God's leading them out towards the promised land. Logically, the quickest way is through Philistine territory.
Straight shot seems obvious.
But that's not what happened. He took them a different way.
A much longer way, through the wilderness by the Red Sea.
And the devotional really flags the reason why. You have to remember who these people were.
They'd been slaves for generations.
Right. No freedom, definitely no military training, nothing like that.
So if they'd immediately run into the Philistines,
The text suggests it would have been disastrous, pure fear. They likely would have just turned right back around to Egypt.
back to what they knew, even if it was slavery, they just weren't ready for that fight.
Not even close. So this detour, this long way round through the wilderness, it wasn't just a delay.
Okay, so what was it then, according to the devotional?
It was, well, essential preparation, a training ground almost.
Okay, not wasted time.
Not at all. The devotional emphasizes that this period was filled with opportunities. They saw God's power firsthand, signs, wonders.
And he
just
provided for them too, right? Food, water, in the middle of nowhere.
directly. Needs met in ways they couldn't have engineered themselves. It wasn't just about survival, though.
What else was happening?
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. God was revealing different aspects of his character to them through their experiences.
Like how?
Well, he became known as Jehovah Rapha, their healer, their physician. He tended to their needs. And also Jehovah Rohi, their shepherd, the one guiding them, protecting them, caring for them.
So it wasn't just abstract ideas about God.
No, it was lived reality. They experienced his care, his healing, his guidance day in, day out. That builds a different kind of trust,
Yeah, a foundation built on actual experience, not just stories.
Precisely. And the devotional argues this foundation was absolutely critical.
For what came later.
Exactly. Because when they did eventually face battles, they could call on him with confidence as Jehovah Nissi.
Their banner of victory.
Yes. Because they had a history, they had a track record with him, they knew his faithfulness from the wilderness.
Okay, so connecting this back to us, to you listening.
The point the devotional makes is that God might operate similarly in our lives too. We hit these detours, these long routes.
Things that feel like setbacks or just confusing delays on the way to our own promised lands, whatever they might be.
Right. And maybe, just maybe, those aren't wasted periods. Maybe they're actually vital for building our own faith, our inner strength, our resilience.
Developing the capacity we need for challenges down the road.
It's a perspective shift, isn't it? It encourages you, if you're in a situation like that, maybe wondering, why is this taking so long? Or why this obstacle, especially if you've been trying in faith?
To maybe see it differently.
Yeah, to consider it might be a learning period, a growth phase, trusting the process, even when it doesn't make immediate sense.
Instead of just frustration, thinking, okay, what am I learning here? How am I growing?
It reframes the whole experience, not just roadblocks, but potential development. God showing more of himself, maybe in practical ways like he did for the Israelites.
It's quite a profound thought. And the devotional makes it even more concrete, doesn't it? With a personal story from the author.
Yes, Pastor Chris shares about his own early ministry, as a teenager, actually.
Wow, okay. What was he doing?
Very hands-on stuff, going house to house, street evangelism, talking to people at work during breaks, in schools.
So really grassroots foundational work.
Absolutely. Connecting with people where they were. He mentions, not everyone listened, but he felt called to preach, so he did it faithfully in those small settings.
Laying the groundwork.
Exactly. And then he draws this really clear contrast.
Between that early work and
between that and where his ministry went later, he specifically says God didn't give him a platform to speak to like 20,000 people back then.
okay. Connecting back to the Israelites. I wasn't ready yet.
That's the implication. Reaching huge crowds, carrying that kind of influence and responsibility,
Okay.
it requires something more.
More capacity, more experience, deeper growth, maybe.
All of that, spiritual maturity, personal development, it ties right back to that theme of preparation.
It makes sense. We often want things to happen quickly, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. As humans, we innovate for speed, faster travel, faster computers. We like efficiency.
We want the direct route.
We do. But the devotional offers this gentle reminder about God's perspective. You know, as the Ancient of Days, his timeline isn't always ours.
He have his own patterns, his own timing.
And his own purposes. He's preparing us often, and that preparation takes the time it takes. It's an investment.
So wrapping this up, the core takeaway from this deep dive really seems to be about trusting the process.
Yeah. God often works through preparation. That longer route, that wilderness time, it might be exactly what's needed.
To build our faith, our resilience, our capacity for whatever he has planned next.
It's about developing us for the future.
Which leads to a really good question for you to think about, maybe after this.
Reflect on those wilderness times in your own life, those delays, those challenges that didn't make sense at the time.
What might you have been learning? What were you maybe being prepared for, even if you couldn't see it then?
And thinking about that now, how could reframing challenges, past or even present ones, as part of a bigger growth process, how might that shift your perspective?
How might it change how you approach things moving forward?
Yeah, definitely something worth mulling over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you later.
For more information on how you can grow spiritually using Rhapsody of Realities, please visit our website, www.rhapsodyofrealities.org, or you can also visit rin.rhapsodyofrealities.org/salvation. Thank you.